Well, perhaps we should begin now. And so we welcome you all back to
Yes.
this second day of the ECP Youth Forum. We're very fortunate this morning to have an introductory speech by a wonderful person long involved with the EPCD, Professor Roberto Savio. He's an Italian-Argentine journalist, the publisher of other news. I don't know if you followed that, but one of the best sources of other information on the internet, Voices Against the Tide, an advisor to the Global Cooperation Council. He was co-founder of the Interpress Service news agency and responsible for international relations for the European Center for Peace and Development. And he's an activist for social and climate justice, and very young in spirit, even though you might judge from the color of his hair that he's not quite at the youth that he used to be, but the spirit is still there, and it's wonderful having to share some ideas with us this morning to get us started on the second day of the Youth Forum. Welcome, Roberto. We're open to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be with the Youth Forum. I think it's an important instrument of the ECPD, and I think it's something we should be strengthened and carried over more and more. So let us say where we are. Well, I think we are in a period of transition, but we do not know to where. We know that the prison system is crumbling. Even the international institutions like Monetary International Fund, the World Bank, are all saying that we are in a period of transition. Now, it is important to remember that not a long time ago, just before the Second World War, we had the three systems, three paradigms, three ideas of which thousands of people died, which were Nazism, fascism, communism, and liberal democracy. At the end of the Second World War, there were two left, communism and liberal democracy. Then today we have only liberal democracy, and liberal democracy is in a serious problem of implementation, participation worldwide. So we have even people campaigning against liberal democracy. In Europe, we have the Prime Minister of Hungary, Orban, who is defending and presenting everywhere the paradigm of illiberal democracy. And yet the European Union is giving $6.5 billion a year in aid to Hungary. So we have a problem of how we live today in the concept of liberal democracy. If we take 2/3 of humankind, they live under no liberal democracy. Let us start from United States, Brazil, India, Philippines, in Europe, Poland and Hungary. I mean, if we put together China, if we put together all the countries which are not living in liberal democracy, we find out that this idea of liberal democracy is slowly winding down. So why? Well, I think that it may be useful. I give you three data that are not widely known among young people. The first data is that at the fall of Berlin Wall in 1989, we had no competition any longer between communism, because it was not over there, and capitalism, and the most extreme version of capitalism went on, what is called neoliberalism. Market is the solution of the problems. Anything which can affect the market is going to be an obstacle to growth. And that was called Washington Consensus and was presented by the Treasurer of United States, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. And that receipt, market is the only solution, was applied all over the world. So, for instance, if we look investment in health, education, research, you will find out that they've been declining dramatically over the last 30 years. Why? Because what does not make a revenue immediately is not profitable. The idea of the profit became the measure to value any investment. So after this first problem, which was the fall of Berlin Wall and the arrival of extreme capitalism, we had a second problem, which was in 2009. We had a crisis, a financial crisis. Financial crisis, which was a very serious problem. Just let's remember that we invested to save the banks all over the world an amount close to $8 trillion. I mean, it was an amount that divided by every citizen in the world would have given them about $1,000. And if you look, there are about 900 million people in the world living under $2 a day. To save the bank, we spent much more than to refloat the economy in the real sense. Also because when I was a student, I was told that the finance is the lubricant, the oil for the economy. Today, finance has been out from the economy. It's its own life, and has nothing to do longer with the economy. Now, there was then a third problem, which was that the Prime Minister of England came out with a theory, Tony Blair. As we cannot beat neoglobalization, let us work with them. With the result that all the people who felt left out from the process of globalization, worker factories closed because they were displaced to cheaper place, the people from the countryside versus the people of town, the people who had jobs were disappearing because of technological change. All these people felt abandoned by the left, and they all went to vote into right. The result, if you look today, you will find out that since 2009, in every country came out a nationalist, xenophobe, and populist party. In everywhere, in the Scandinavian country, everywhere. Why? Because through the 2 decades of greed to which we were educated, 1989 Berlin Wall to 2009, the economic crisis, for 20 years we've been educated to greed as the value on which to work. Success, greed, money, man was completely displaced from the center of society. And then 2009, we had this big financial crisis, plus immigration, basically from countries where we did intervene to change the regime. And this creates a wave of fear. Now, historians would tell you that greed plus fear are two elements which change history. So now we are in the world in a moment in which we are seeing what greed plus fear is doing. We have come back to nationalism, to xenophobia, to populism, and two things. I mean, this pandemic is going to be a very, very serious increaser of all the problems. Let's just know that at the end of this pandemic, we will have 290 more million of people living under $2 a day. and that, for instance, Latin America is going backward 10 years ago. And number of children and women who are the most fragile part of society in difficulty will increase by 37% according OECD. So now you will say, very well, this happened before my time, I had nothing to do with this, and now I'm the victim of a situation which was created out of my will, out of my participation, all this going over my head. What I have to do with it, what I can do with it. Well, let us say that, let us take a 10-year period. In 10 years, you will be a professional, citizen, maybe with a family, friends, you will be very concrete part of society. So let us look at the next 10 years and to see what are your problems for the next 10 years. You have three challenges. Two are well known, one is less known. The first challenge is the challenge of climate change. In New York now there is a big clock which has 7 years and 4 months and something going. Every second this clock goes down, down, down. It approached the moment in which we will not be able to stop the climate change and save our planet. What we know is that without young people making a strong campaign about climate change, governments would have done nothing. Now they've done something because they've created a Paris Agreement, out of which, of course, the United States withdrew. But the problem is that the agreement that have been made in Paris would bring the increase in the temperature of the world at least by 3 centigrade and a half. We cannot afford an increase larger than 1.5. We can maybe do 2, but beyond that, our planet will be lost as it is. Just think that in the permafrost, in the frozen Earth of the Northern Hemisphere, there are 7.5 billion square meter of methane that once it will be released will destroy forever the climate. And that it will happen when the permafrost will start to melt. We have already lost 20,000 species, we have lost a lot of rivers, lakes, things. We have every year fires, disaster, hurricanes, typhoon, but nothing changed. So your first problem is what to do with this, because 7 years and a half is within these 10 years of your life. And that is a very important challenge that you have. The second important challenge that you have is the problem of peace. We do not talk much about this, but we are going more and more in a world where peace is in danger. Military spending has increased to $1,910 billion. We are nearly at $2 trillion. To put it in a perspective, think that the budget of the United States is $4 billion. And think that the United States alone is spending $900 billion in military expenses. So if we would take this money and divide per habitant in the world, it would give $767 per person. And you can realize that would make a very, very big difference. Now, the question is that this world in which we are is now starting breaking down in wars, little wars here and there. Now there is one between Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. All these little wars are not any longer local wars. There are wars in which there are always number of countries taking part. And the danger that one of this war will get out of hand is a very serious one. So peace is very important because peace is bringing us to the values on which we organize our world after the Second World War. Peace is the element on which we have to work together. But what does it mean, peace? Peace means the absence of war. Peace means a culture of peace. It's something that you value as the basis of our international relations. Would you feel more safe, more secure, if your country has another bombardier or another military ship, or if your life would be safer, you would have a more dignified life, a secure world? In other words, it is time that we start to speak of human security as a concept alternative or maybe integrative to military security. Human security is the challenge you have in the next 10 years. Then there is a third challenge that is not very clear now, but is there and in my view is extremely important, which is the arrival of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will change our life. It has a capability unknown in history. I will give you an example. The most cognitive difficult task for human brain is considered to check a game. Well, we had the champion of the world until a year ago, something called AlphaZero, which is a computer developed by Google, which had the ability of making 70 million positions on the chess per second. And they worked during 5 years to collect all the data of the games played in the world, in chess game, and so on. And then a new program came, which is what is called the Starfish 8. Starfish had only 70,000 positions on the chessboard per second. And he did win over the other computer just last year. Why? Because Starfish was a different system, was using artificial intelligence. It had the auto-learning process, and using this process, started to play himself against himself all the time. And in 4 hours, he was able to beat the old system, which was not based on artificial intelligence, but on robotization. What I want to say is that this artificial intelligence is coming very fast. Tesla, the car maker, yesterday has already given 60 cars to 60 people self-driving cars. And this will come. And when there will be self-driving cars, there will be in Europe 800,000 people out of job, taxi driver, all kind of drivers. And if you apply artificial intelligence to life, well, you will find out that there will be a moment in which artificial intelligence will make better diagnosis than doctors, better lawsuit than lawyers, but they will not be able to substitute the nurse. They will not be able to substitute the people who take care of the elders people in the house. So there are some jobs which are going to disappear and some other which are which are not substitutable with artificial intelligence, will strengthen. You have to add to this that we have three new fields of development. Info technology, which is what Zuckerberg does by extracting data from all of us and using that to make money. Biotechnology, which is how to use artificial intelligence for practice. For instance, we will have a very minuscule robot which we can put in our body. They will collect all our data and send the data outside. And to this you have introduced, of course, nanotechnology, which is the scale of millimeters for application. That means we are going to a period in which we are going to become data. We are already data. Everything we do in our life is registered. It registered how we spend, with whom we go, what we see, what we like, what we need, everything. And this has created this use of internet, which was originally built for a public service. I remember my enthusiasm when it came out. It has become something totally different. It has become an instrument for money making for a few people, which have become extremely rich, and we have just become objects. The 20 years from the fall of Berlin, we have been educated to become consumers. Now we have become educated to become objects. And we are giving away all our privacy, all our identity, all our personality, all our taste to this mechanism. And the internet has been aggravating that. I want to give an example. Trump has 60 million followers. All American media, all of them, high quality local papers, make 59 million copies. The good papers, right wing like Wall Street Journal or left wing like Washington Post, sell 10 million copies. And this newspaper declining every year because young people don't write newspaper. So what I want to say is that over the 10 years, you are going to have three fundamental challenges. How to keep peace, how to stop the climate change, and how to deal with this new world of info technology which is coming up, and how artificial intelligence is going to shape up the world. On this, there is no debate. It has become the solution of immediate problems. There is no more politics looking at medium range or long range. So we have a very serious problem of governance. Now, that said, you are going to say probably fine, but this again is going over my head. So I would like to give you some little points on which you can change the world by doing things. The first is to join the fight to help to stop the climate tragedy. That without young people will be certainly in a terrible situation. And this is important to continue because the system is not interested in that. It starts now to realize that there is also the possibility to make some money through new technology and so on, but basically blocked by inertia. The second is that you must push for a culture of peace against the current increase of military costs, which is dramatic. We don't talk about this, but we are already on the threshold of crossing the $2 trillion. And today we look to figures like if they're natural. People find natural that in American election we are spending $20,000 million. That is not natural. War is not natural. Poverty is not natural. We have made natural number of things which are not natural. And we should be able to look into that with our personality. Then we should insist on the defense of cooperation, international cooperation, like tools of civilization. All this campaign, my country first and so on, is a fallacy because today we live in a world of globalization and you cannot compete alone in a world which is made by strong powers which are going back to the law of the jungle because we are discarding the idea of cooperation. United Nations is becoming more and more in crisis. European Union has a number of European citizens who are in favor of coming back to the old glorious time. And this is a very serious problem because if we go back to the world of the 30s, which we are doing, we are going into a world of fight and competition. Another point is a different attitude to immigrants. Like or not, we need immigrants. Of course, we have to establish a policy to have them being a useful part of our societies, but the idea that all immigrants are bad, it is something which has been used politically by populists and nationalists and xenophobes to get to power. There is a Spanish philosopher called Adele Colina who has created a new term, Aporophobia. Aporos in Greek means poor. It means phobia of the poor. Because if an Arab comes with 7 wives and 20 servants, we will receive this Arab with great enthusiasm. And if a black football player comes here, he will legally receive it with great enthusiasm. Why then we are against poor Arabs who come here because they are looking for a way of living, or black people? That we resent them as a race, we resent them because they're poor. This is a debate which Colina opened, and I think is interesting to think about that. That means we have also to fight against the racism for the equal participation of women in society, to respect their dignity. Then we have to fight for social justice and against poverty. This we can do in our daily life. And finally, what I can say to you, look to this digital revolution which is coming, so that it takes an approach not to serve the market, but to serve the man. That would be very important. Otherwise, we will live in a dystopic world where the great brother will not be the state, but the market, which of course will also cooperate with the state. So the next 10 years are crucial. I think the next 10 years are going to be considered in history maybe the most important decade since the end of World War II. There is an historian called Toynbee who speaks of acceleration of history. In fact, 10 years today are more intense. Much more things happen in 10 years today than in 10 years of the last century. So these 10 years are going to be your 10 years. What my generation left you is not very much. We are not being able to leave you a word of social justice, a word of peace, of cooperation. We started to do that. We built the world after Second World War, my generation, on these principles. They're being lost. And unfortunately, very little we can do, my generation. What we left you is a world in peace, world with United Nations, world with European Union, world with institutions which were supposed to be based on values, values of peace, value of justice, value of cooperation, values which are in the constitution of the countries. And on this value build a world where we have no war, no injustice. All what we have been able to do is to give you a world without wars in the sense of global wars. We have plenty of local wars. So, unfortunately, we failed. I feel that very strongly with myself. And I think that you are the only one who can save the direction of our world. And that will happen in the next 10 years, which are the 10 years of your life, in which you will become full citizen and you will be the players, the actors of the change. Please go back to vote. Today there are referendum in Chile. Do you know how many young people vote in Chile? 20% of young people. Would we have Brexit if young British would have voted? No. We had Brexit because young people did not vote. Today there is a sense of incertitude, which I understand very, very well. When I finished university, the same day the 3 offer jobs that were today does not exist any longer. But that is your world. And if you do not take over and you do not run that world, well, all people will do it. We all people have a lot of facilities. When I go to Cine, I have a discount. Why? Because all people vote, and so we are important in politics. Young people don't vote, so they are irrelevant in politics. So I think that the future comes to have your participation, your active participation as citizen, not as objects, not as consumer, to put yourself at the center of your life. And let me give you a little magic wand that you can keep during these 10 years, and that will keep you young and active. That is the capacity to get upset. Do not lose that capacity. Until you will be able to get upset, you will be young. The day in which you will not get upset any longer, you will not be any longer young. And then we will have a problem with the future generations and a lost decade. Thank you very much, and I wish to all of you the best of success in building up your life.